Hello again, traders, and welcome back to the Hot Stocks Outlook for March 13th, 2020. Hope y'all are having an excellent week out in the financial markets, and as always, plenty to cover in this week's Outlook. So what we're going to be doing today is taking a look at several of these markets that we've looked at over the past several weeks to really highlight a very important concept within the Vantagepoint software here, and that's its ability to adapt moving forward. So what we're able to do here is actually take in what's called intermarket data. So how other markets are known to drive and influence and affect the target market and produce accurate forecasting moving forward. So that coming in the way of trend forecasting with our predicted moving averages, but also short-term forecasting with this neural index at the bottom of the chart here, and also a predicted range that you're provided with each and every trading day. So starting out with shares of Boeing here, what we have is those daily bars right up against the price action. So you see you've got each one of these candles representing a full and complete trading day, and there's a black line and a blue line right up against that price data. Now, the black line that you see there, that is a regular simple moving average. So very common technical indicator in that it takes the past 10 close prices, adds them all together, divides by 10, and plots that number moving forward. Now, the problem with an indicator in a tool like that is that it only has the ability to look at past prices and only able to incorporate information from shares of Boeing when we know that the global markets are heavily related. When you see the S&P moving lower, it's no different in Europe and Asia, how their stock indices are doing. And these markets share very important relationships. You can think of the gold market, dollar index, interest rates, and how they all share sometimes positive, sometimes negative correlations to individual stocks and stock indices. So what we have right up against that price data, along with that black line, is also this blue value. And so for that value to be calculated and plotted on the chart each and every trading day, Vantagepoint is performing what's called intermarket analysis and specifically utilizing the technology of artificial neural networks to do it. And so what it's doing is not just looking at shares of Boeing, but looking at other related ETF markets, looking at things like the S&P 500, looking at global currencies, interest rates, and it understands how those relationships are pushing and pulling and affecting the future price of shares of Boeing. And what goes on as far as creating that predicted moving average is it actually is generating some predictive candles, so data in the future that hasn't yet occurred, a true prediction, and building it into the value of this indicator, turning what was a lagging indicator that only looks at past price into a forward-looking predictive tool. And so whenever we have that predicted moving average move above or below the actual moving average, really use that as a comparison, it suggests that there's been a trend shift in the marketplace. And what happened this last week of February is you saw pretty much the entire market with the help of this IntelliScan feature. What we can do is run fresh one-day-old crossovers, and that alerts us to when big trend changes are coming through. Obviously, the broader market started to turn lower, but we're going to see some of these other markets we saw were already weak going into this period here. But what we have is that blue line crossing below the black line, suggesting, look, average prices are going to start moving lower. Now, in addition to that predicted moving average, though, you also have this indicator at the bottom of the chart, which you see it'll update from a green to a red configuration back to a green. And what this is a very short-term indicator in that it's only looking ahead 48 hours at a time. And how I like to think of this is really just forecasting short-term strength or weakness in the market. But again, only 48 hours ahead. And you can see how this works as far as the entirety of the forecast, where the overall trend is down. And we just see time and time again, when this neural index gets bullish, you may see price moving to the bullish side of that predicted average. But the overall trend, if that blue line is still below the black line, still to the downside. And lastly, to really round out the entirety of these forecasts is the predicted high and low range. So each and every trading day, even through all of this volatility that we've seen over the past couple weeks, you get this value that's able to look at those market relationships and understand, okay, well, now that there's been a new close, now that we look at those intermarket relationships, where is it likely for price to move so that you can take a position without taking a tremendous amount of risk? And you see some really nice entries here. You can choose to enter at the predicted high. If you really just get close or even in the first upper half of that range, often a good opportunity to go ahead and get involved in the trend or even add to an existing position. So shares of Boeing here, really nice move lower, and we've really seen things accelerate here. And then Now, where there's some real value is the ability to get into markets early, recognize trend reversals earlier. That's really the trend forecasting component of these predicted moving averages, but then having the short-term tools to manage that opportunity. And in a period like this, just tremendous opportunities to take those profits, add them in on the short side, and make a considerable amount of money here. Now, we talked about the weakness in energies, and this has persisted for quite a long time, going all the way back to the beginning of the year. Exxon is a good sort of proxy to look at the broader energy space as it relates to energy stocks, but also crude oil in general. And so think about a stock like ExxonMobil and saying, okay, well, how can I get an edge on where ExxonMobil shares are headed early? Well, you need to be looking at crude oil prices. You need to be looking at other energies like natural gas, heating oil, those ETFs that compose other energy companies and energy stocks, global currencies that are trading in oil in these stocks. So very important relationships taking place there. And that allows us to produce these accurate forecasts moving forward. And you see in shares of Exxon here, I mean, this has been a huge move. We saw fundamentals come into play with Russia and Saudi Arabia and things getting driven down even more. But this is a market that's forecasted to start moving lower, up at $69, $70 per share, and now is down 40%. If we look more recently over the past couple of weeks, so more recently when these forecasts had come through, we can see, okay, well, let's look at those predicted high and low levels. And you see that even through this volatility, you get some really great levels over these 48-hour windows to take some positions. And really, if you can deal with your position and deal with that volatility over the 48 hours that really align with the Neural Index, you're likely going to be getting very good prices at those predicted highs, and then that overall trend really playing out and continuing lower. So we see just in the past couple of weeks from these predicted high levels, market moving down another 20%. So it was almost half the move there just in the past 7-8 trading days or so. We also, over the past few weeks, looked at these shoe companies. And again, with the help of this IntelliScan feature, you're able to identify when sectors or certain groupings of stocks start to take a move. Now, obviously, that last week of February, almost everything started to move to the downside, really sending those alarm bells that you need to get short, get out of your long positions, buy some puts and protection, and make some money that way on the market. Well, here in Skechers, you see we have this crossover to the downside. And again, it's the same thing with Steve Madden, Crocs, Nike. I mean, everything's moving lower here. But these were things that really started moving lower earlier and over the past really couple of months here. But we see shares of Skechers moving to the downside. You see how this Neural Index can get bullish, but it's really just letting you know there's short-term strength, right? It's only looking ahead 48 hours at a time. And that just means, look, you may get a little bullish price action. You may move to that bullish side of the predicted moving average. But of course, we can trade above and below that average, right? And so we want to go ahead and use the tools like the Vantagepoint predicted highs and lows to say, okay, well, where should we be taking positions along this move? And what you don't want to get in the habit of is sort of chasing markets, right? So you see you get a gap down, things moving lower. Well, use the predicted levels to get some better prices. Just stay patient in that daily sort of time frame and wait for a new predicted high and low range to come in, and you're likely to eventually get filled at a much superior price level. And so again, we see shares of Skechers here overall off about 27%, but more so just in the past really week and a half, couple weeks here, shares off another 15%. Another area of the market that we looked at was financials, and seeing a lot of these bank stocks really showing a lot of weakness. Wells Fargo maybe having some more problems than some of the other ones, but again, you just see the accuracy of these forecasts. The overall trend clearly to the downside, and it's the same with so many stocks right now because of the magnitude of the move that we've seen. But you see how the Neural Index saying, look, we might get a little bit of strength on this trading day. Neural Index, again, you might get some strength over these next couple of trading days. Again, moving to that bullish side of the predicted moving average. But overall, this is a downward trend. And you see towards the tail end of this move so far, the more recent price data, just the distance and separation between that predicted moving average and the actual moving average. And so again, just a tremendous move here, shares off over 32%, but more so just more recently, some of these predicted high levels being hit up at, what is this, $42, $43 per share, and now moving down about $10 per share just in the past couple of weeks here. So there's really just been some tremendous moves here, and it's one of these periods of time where if you have the right tools, you can go in and deal with that volatility more effectively, but also get in early on in these moves lower, and so that you can use those accumulated profits to really get involved at a really exceptional level, and potentially take a larger share position, putting some of those accumulated gains at risk. Lastly here, again, just another stock here, Dish Network. So we haven't looked at this one recently here, but again, just this is what we're seeing all throughout the markets, is crossover to the downside and excessive weakness from the Neural Index, signaling, look, for the past couple weeks, if you want to come in and short, you've got even that intraday guidance. So, Vantagepoint here is an end of day tool, right? At each and every trading day, there's a new candle, a new predicted high and low range you see at the very right-hand portion of the chart, but it's giving you intraday levels so that you can come in the trading day, set your limit orders, not get all hung up with chasing the, volatility and sort of chasing noise around, and get that overall really nice position in a market, and make sure that you get involved in the move, because these sorts of moves obviously aren't very often, or isn't very common that these sort of things come through, but they're tremendously profitable trading opportunities if you're aware of them and have the right tools to navigate this. So we see Dish Network here just in the past 12 trading days off 40% to the downside here, and certainly we've seen the S&P just in the past couple weeks move down over 20%. So, but once again, guys, this has been a really fantastic opportunity and really highlights the value of these tools, where we were able to recognize areas of weakness in the market long before that last week of February. So you have areas in the market that you can be exploiting to the downside, and only really get walloped when the broader markets start to turn lower. So once again, this has been our Hot Stocks Outlook for March 13th, 2020. Thank you all for watching. Best of luck, and bye for now.